So there was a story I wanted to tell. I didn't have time in another video that I made to tell it, but it was a changing point, a turning point in my life with this disease, and I didn't even know I had it at the time. But I had been in agony for so long. I had been dealing with this pain since I was 15 years old, coming and going, always there, but sometimes controllable, sometimes not. Just the different pains all over the body, not really knowing what was going on, but not making a big connection between everything. So what happened is, I hadn't had a flare-up in my back for a while. So one day I got invited to go to the beach with some friends. And I was excited about it and psyched out, and wouldn't you know it, about 5 days before we were going to go, I had a massive back spasm. It put me down flat on my back. I could not even move around without gut-wrenching agony. The kind of pain, I don't know if people understand what severe pain is like. Sometimes they don't. Just imagine, like I said, red hot pokers or knives just stuck in you and someone twisting them and they just won't come out. It's like someone snapped off an arrow in your back and you just can't get it out. You're just in agony. It takes your breath away. You can't even breathe sometimes. You realize that you're locked up because you're trying to just move. So that kind of pain takes a toll on you. It wears you down, and it gets you to a point where you feel like you are very down on yourself. And I'd gone through this probably about 15 or 20 times, believe it or not, at this point in my life where I was invited to the beach. And I reached a point where I was really tired of this getting me out of the game of life. And so I reached a conclusion that if I stayed at home and didn't go with my friends to the beach and try to have as good of a time as I could possibly have, that I was going to be giving in, and I may as well just resign to this, immense pain that I had. I didn't even really have any diagnosis of anything other than basic muscle spasms for the entire duration of my life. Never before did anyone even suggest that I had a disease like ankylosing spondylitis. It was just muscle spasms, inflammation, things like that. You must have pulled something. But then when you're sitting there and you're telling them, all I did was lean over to pick up a sock, or all I did was stand up. I just sat in the car for a couple of hours. Why this level of pain? They never really put it together. They just figure, well, that's just the way it is. And so I found a lot of my doctors through the years were kind of quick to just make a diagnosis of muscle spasms, trauma, whatever they wanted to call it, and give you the basics. So if you're experiencing issues with it, you think you might have it, the test is a simple blood test. So it's pretty easy to find out. It's not easy to live with, but it's easy to find out. So anyway, I made the choice to go, and I had a great time even though I was in severe agony, and I had no way to hide the fact that I was in agony. I used to not like people to know that I was in such pain because it drew attention to me that I didn't want. I didn't want people to go overboard trying to coddle me or anything. I just wanted to be with everyone else and be a part of the fun without some special attention being brought to me. So there was no way to avoid that, but everybody knew that my back was completely wrecked. But I got out there with everybody else in the surf, and I had a blast. I went out everywhere that everybody went. I did everything I could possibly do. I even did things I didn't think I could do. And when I got through with it, I honestly thought it was the best thing I ever did, because now when I look back, I don't remember the pain. The pain wasn't there in my memory. I remember that I was in pain, but I don't remember the pain. I just remember the fun. So, that means that I actually must have won. I won some kind of battle inside me, because, if I had stayed, I think it would have been a lot worse. It would have brought me down to a point where you know, later on down the line, when I got the diagnosis for AS, it might have impacted me a lot worse. It hit me, it takes the wind out of your sails. It makes you think about what you wanted from your future. I always thought I'd be an active person, be able to hike and fish, camp, hunt, all those things that guys like to do. But I'm not going to be able to do them in the conventional fashion that a normal person would do. I may be able to camp, but I'm going to have to take special provisions to, make sure that my back is not subjected to undue stress. I won't be able to sleep on the ground. I can't do the things that normal people can do. I find that I'm scared of chairs, scared of beds, because you just never know what's going to make you go into a flare-up. I don't know if anyone else is living with this kind of, the way that it affects me, because it affects everybody differently. I've noticed signs of progression, like the eye problem I've noticed, but never really paid any attention to it, just figured it was just another problem, stress related or whatever. But actually I think it's the AS doing its iritis or something like that. It's pain and muscle spasms and inflammation of the eyeball, which is not fun. And it's just one more thing you got to deal with. So what can you do? You just take it day by day, man. So I guess that was my story, basically, of how I won one little battle over the intense agony that this disease will produce. For some people it's worse than others. So if you're worse than me, I really feel for you, and I hope that you have a lot of strength, and I hope that you keep your head in a place where you can be strong. I hope you got supportive people around you, because I've found that it's tough when no one understands what you're going through. You feel completely isolated. Like, when I get around people that don't understand chronic pain, they tend to have this attitude like you're just trying to pull a fast one on everybody, that you're lazy, you don't want to do your share, or whatever it is. I've run across 100 different attitudes towards people with back pain or any kind of pain, any kind of thing that takes them out of the game. Because people, for some odd reason, when they don't have any kind of pain and they don't have trouble and they don't have to live with these things, they have zero sympathy. And once something happens to them, suddenly their eyes are opened, and it's an incredible transformation you'll see. If I actually knew a person that was kind of like that. Felt like people that complained a lot about chronic pain were just bitchers, bullshitters, trying to, laze out, typical type of thing. But then he had a muscle spasm in his lower back, and it was due, he fell on something, and a few weeks later was laying in bed, and he said it felt like someone just jammed a knife into his back, and he was screaming holy murder. He couldn't even get out of bed. Rescue had to come and take him to the hospital because he couldn't even move. He thought his whole spine had slipped off of the axis and was in 3 pieces. He didn't know what happened. He was scared to death. It turned out when they gave him the diagnosis, it was just a muscle spasm. He, first off, one thing, couldn't believe it. Then second off, when I was talking to him after he was in his healing process, this was also the gentleman that I went to the beach with, because I was able to tell him, you remember when we went to the beach and I was in agony? I said, that was the pain that I was feeling, that exact pain. And he didn't believe that I was in that level of pain and was still able to go to the beach. And I told him, look, man, I wasn't just in that pain and was able to go. I made myself go. I had to force myself to do that, but it was well worth it. At the time, being his first muscle spasm, he wasn't really trying to push it. But for me, being like my 20th, eventually you're just like, hey, sorry if the kids are watching, but that's what you have to do. You have to give it a big F-U, because otherwise it's going to take you down, and it's probably going to take you down anyway. But you may as well live as long as you can, and you may as well have the best out of life. Don't let it take you down.